Hey guys, how y'all doing? It's Chappy here. I tell you, it's my favorite night of the week. Thursday nights. That means we get to talk baseball. Chap's Fantasy Chat. Thursday nights at 8. Brought to you on Draft for Upside via iLogic Media. Make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe if you like what you're hearing. Got a lot of great content on this channel, and it's building by the day. So be sure and support your fellow podcasters. But tonight we're going to talk about an absolutely loaded position, and that's middle infield. It's interesting. You kind of get mixed emotions, mixed opinions when discussing, especially the second base position. I, for one, feel like it's deep, but there are no doubt about it, no shortage of players to target, both early, middle, and late in this draft. So without further ado, this is going to be a jam-packed session. Because there's just a lot to discuss here. But I think first off, you kind of have to start to nail down approach. And approach here at second and short for me is very much you have to chart your course. You can't go in blind. You have to make a list, and you have to have a set game plan heading in to your draft, because you could very well end up not thinking about it holistically and just drafting the wrong fit for your team. So first off, the first thing I want to talk about is, and I've talked about it a little bit more in weeks past, but I think it's important to revisit, the importance of understanding where the breakdowns on counting stats come from in terms of fantasy baseball and how it breaks down. So how I kind of look at it is you have the outfield, you have the infield broken up into corner and middle. On the corner, you usually have your power and your RBI guys. In the middle, you really want to try and hone in on getting some speed. And you could do that one of two ways. You can do it late. You can do it with cheap guys, but those cheap guys are going to give you a lot of empty holes when it comes to your counting stats. What I mean by that, they're not going to give you any home runs, most likely. They're not going to give you much of a batting average. There's going to be a big miss in either runs or RBIs because of where they hit in the lineup. So these are the sort of things that might kind of seem a little bit trivial, but really are important when you're thinking about how you want to approach your draft. So I've said this for the past couple weeks. I'll say it again this week. If you're starting nuts and bolts your draft strategy, you have to start here at the middle infield position, because the players at the top of this position offer a skill set that quite honestly aren't offered anywhere else in the sport outside of the top 3 or 4 outfielders. So, I talked a lot last week, and I won't spend much time on them this week. I talked about Tatis, I talked about Turner, and I talked about Story. All 3 of those guys are very valuable pieces, and if you get a chance to buy them, you should. I said last week that I think that Tatis is overvalued at 2 or 3. I felt like Story and Turner were undervalued at 8 and 12. So and of course, a lot of that's predicated too off of where you pick in the draft. My point was last week, it is again this week. It doesn't matter where you're picking. You can attack this position, and you should early on. So tonight, I kind of went from a little bit different angle. I wanted to talk about a lot of the second base position and basically the importance of setting up your teams, right? And we'll come back. So last week we talked about, like I said, Story, Turner, and Tatis. I won't spend very, very little time on them tonight. What I will spend time on is that next layer of guys at the shortstop position. We'll come to them a little bit later. But tonight I felt like it's really important establishing tiers at the second base position. I say that because I always tell people, make your own lists, because a lot of people, even just by making your own list, you're ahead of the game. Because a lot of people are just going to go off of a magazine and wherever it falls, it falls. They're not going to put much thought into it. If you make your own list, you know who you like, and you at least have an idea in your mind as to why you put them there. So the importance of doing that is you can really use it to your benefit when drafting. Because if you know that 80% of your league is going to go off of, Fantasy Pros website or fantasy whatever website. What's up, Rich? Welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Then if you know what that ADP is, so for instance, say you really like Keston Hiura and you personally value him more so than Whit Merrifield, just as a for instance, you should then be confident going up from Keston Hiura's 72, I think it is. Keston Hiura is 73. You should then feel comfortable going up to where Whit Merrifield sits at 40. I'm not saying you have to go right at 40, right? The point is, if you're sitting there in the fourth round and you think Hiura is a better player than Merrifield, you can sit there and wait until Merrifield gets taken and then take Hiura immediately after. So it's knowing what most of your league is most likely to do and taking advantage of that. Second base is interesting because it almost seems like there has to be a certain you're looking for specific things at second base. Second base in modern baseball is almost going to become one of those positions where there's not a whole lot of stolen bases there. It's become more of almost like a third base light, right? You got a lot of power. You got a lot of RBIs and guys hitting in the middle of the lineup in that second base slot now. It used to be, littler guys that could run and, usually hitting the two hole. So they'd hit and run, they'd bunt, they'd work a walk, they'd steal a base. That's very much not what we're talking about with this group. So what you need to try and do with this group in the modern fantasy baseball age is you need to capitalize on as many silos as you can offensively. And what I mean by that is you need to come in and have a clear-cut plan on not having big holes at the whether it's batting average or on base percentage or whatever that hitting category is in your league. You need to not have holes at your second or at your stolen base category. You need to not have holes at your runs and RBIs and home runs, right? So that's how you kind of have to approach it holistically. Knowing that when you go into second base, you know that a lot of these players, when we get down further in this lineup, there's a good opportunity for them to give you a really big liability in one of those stats that count, right? So counting stats. That's why I say you kind of have to attack this list quickly, especially when you look at the tiers. And tonight we're going to talk some about tiering. And it's important to have that too, right? So know at what points in the draft at each of these positions there's a drop-off in talent. So I've kind of done it a little bit differently than I normally have. This is my top tier, but I have it partitioned out into two guys. There are two tiers within the tier. So lower top tier, higher top tier, lower top tier. So the top tier for me, there's 4 players at the top tier of this second base position. We're going to talk about them. And I think if you get any of these 4 players, you're really setting yourself up well. I'm talking about DJ LeMahieu and Ozzie Albies sitting in that first tier by themselves. And then the second half of that first tier is Kevin Biggio and Gleyber Torres. Now, I'm kind of putting Torres here as a pipe dream. He technically doesn't qualify at second base, but I feel like he fits in really well here because I want to kind of draw some similarities and some examples as to why you could put him at a middle infield position at sacrifice of second base, early on. So, in other words, get your shortstop in the first round, come back and get Gleyber in the 5th or 6th round, and come back and get your second baseman later. So you have your short and your middle infielders before you have your second base. That's kind of where I'm going with this. So bear with me just a bit, as this is going to be a little bit different. Rich, I'm drinking Old Elk. Old Elk is coming from my good friends in Mishawaka, Indiana at Citywide Liquor. If you're in Mishawaka, Indiana, stop in and see my buddy Patrick. Citywide Liquor, the place to go when your spirits are low. Old Elk. Check it out. It's pretty good. It's sweet. So let's talk about these guys individually, right? Let's talk about DJ LeMahieu. His ADP is 26.8. So you're looking at a top of the third round type of guy. When I do my comps, I always bring it back to 12-team standard leagues, a 12-team league, rather. So when I say the rounds, always assume that we're talking about a 12-team league. So LeMahieu at 26.8, a high third-round draft pick. I feel like it's a little tough to go that high on a guy who's really not, aside from the average, isn't outstanding with power. He's going to score a bunch of runs. But when it really comes down to it, doesn't give you outstanding numbers anywhere outside of average, right? But the thing about LeMahieu and why – so what a scenario where I might take DJ LeMahieu is a scenario where I have to then take a chance on my shortstop and get a guy that maybe might need a little bit of an average boost. And that you could see that happening, right? So you could draft a guy like LeMahieu and put him with an Adalberto Mondesi. That would be a good – so kind of think of these guys and start to pair them together, right? But at 26.8 ADP, you're looking at a third-round pick, and quite frankly, I would rather – if I'm going to take a chance on a third-round pick, I would rather have Ozzie Albies. I'll say this, and this was an interesting stat that I came up with about LeMahieu. In 2 years in New York, he's hit 36 homers and carries a .336 average. In 7 years in Colorado, he hit 49 homers and had a .305 batting average. Wow, right? I mean, so you're telling me he's getting ready to do in 3 years, power-wise, what it took him 7 years to do in Colorado. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about Nolan Arenado and how his power is going to suffer from leaving. I don't quite buy that. 30-point raise in average. Again, 13 homers away in 5 less years. That's pretty impressive. I like Albies. I don't love Albies. I like LeMahieu. I don't love LeMahieu. I love Albies. Albies is the guy that, to me, this time next year could very well be a second or third round pick. We haven't seen the best out of Ozzie Albies yet. And I think it's getting ready to come this year. This year, guys. So why not get in if you are going to spend the draft capital this high on a second baseman, draft for upside. You see that, Cole? You like that, didn't you? Draft for upside. I mean, I say that because you kind of know what LeMahieu gives you. You don't kind of know. You absolutely know what LeMahieu gives you. He gives you a lot. I don't want to sit here and short sell it. But what he doesn't give you is the ability to hit 30 homers. Ozzie Albies at 24 years old absolutely gives you that opportunity. And I feel like, again, at 32.8, if you're talking about pure value, give me the upside every time. and try and grab that lightning in a bottle. So the worst case scenario, the floor with Albies is a 280, 290 hitter with 25 homers. That's the worst case scenario. But if he has that breakout year, and guys, I've seen this guy in the minor leagues multiple times, so it was pretty clear pretty early on that this guy had quite a bit of talent. This guy's a 310, 320 hitter. And he just needs he's maturing, right? And he needs to get to the point where he's comfortable. And I think he's there. This is the age where he's there. I love the upside of Albies, and at 32, I feel like he's a better value than LeMahieu. Sure, he might not hit for as high as average as LeMahieu does, but the home runs, I think, is a safe floor and a higher ceiling coming from Albies. Next up, 25-year-old Cavan Biggio, the last guy in this first tier. 65.8 ADP. Of course, we all know his dad, great Houston Astro. The thing about Biggio, you worry about his average a bit. But all in all, Biggio is that rare power speed combination at this position that enables you to create a mismatch where others aren't able to match that. If you could put and Biggio's going to be playing at third base this year, so they're going to ask him to continue to develop his power. But the stolen base part of Cavan Biggio is the part that most other second basemen can't account for without sacrificing across the board in other areas. Here's a 159 game out. He hasn't played a full season yet. But 159 games. Sorry. I can't read. So he's played 159 games. He's got a career 240 batting average, 24 homers, and 20 stolen bases. He's got 107 runs, guys. I think the floor is pretty safe for Cavan Biggio, and I think that floor is right around 20 stolen bases. At second base, you take that all day long, because if you look at the other names on this board, they're just not there. So again, talked about Biggio at a 60. The reason I wanted to bring Gleyber in here, again, we're talking about the middle infield, right? So I think it's a good time because I look at Gleyber as a second baseman. And if you think about it, he had his best year as a second baseman. I know he's young. He's young. He's just 24 years old. He's undervalued at 65. That's a pretty severe undervalue for me. We're talking about a guy who had a bad hamstring last year. He didn't have the great year. But people forget the statistics that he has been able to put up as a young player. He's the second player in franchise history to hit at least 30 home runs in his age 22 season or younger. Joe DiMaggio is the only other person to do that. He hit 46 back in 1937. Joe DiMaggio's pretty good company to be in, right? He had 8 multi-homer games in 2019. Only 5 other Yankees have done that. I'm sure you can guess there's some pretty big names there, right? Mickey Mantle in 1961 did that. A-Rod in 27 did that. Babe Ruth in 1927 did it. He hit 13 homers in 66 at-bats against the Orioles. Only the second player in franchise history to do that. The only other person to do that is Joe DiMaggio. That's multi-homer games across five multi-homer games. So he's got pretty impressive power at just 24 years old. In the middle of one of the best bats or lineups in the league. Torres, to me, is an extreme value. And again, as a sixth rounder, I think 40 homers is a pretty safe floor for him. I could see a scenario where you take two shortstops in the first 5-6 rounds and come back and get your second baseman later because Gleyber Torres has slipped so low. That's just kind of how I'm approaching it. In other words, if you can't get, you probably don't want to get, in most cases, LeMahieu, Albies, or Biggio. They're probably a little bit too high. I propose that you go Trey Turner, Trevor Story, and Gleyber Torres and come back later and get I don't know. We'll talk about him later. A lower guy at second base. Let's talk about this second tier. Before we do that, 822, Chap's Fantasy Chat. You can find me on iLogic Media on YouTube. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you get all my latest information. You can find me at Chap's Fantasy Chat on Twitter and at Chappie's Fantasy Sports Group on Facebook. Make sure you like Draft for Upside. There's a bunch of great content on there. Everything from golf to cooking shows to DFS, you name it. Football, baseball, basketball, we have it all. Come back and join us at 10 o'clock tonight. We're going to be talking about some bubble teams. Me and RC, the other angle with Chappie and RC. Of course, you can find all of this on iLogic Media. Really up-and-coming group of guys. So make sure you like and subscribe to that. Keston Hiura. Now, I'll say this. This has to be a fluid list. I like Whit Merrifield better than Keston Hiura by a scotch. But when I first wrote this, I had Keston above him. So we'll take him first. You have to be able to be adjust to this stuff as you're doing your research. You have to be honest with yourself. At least I try to be. Mountaineers on in the background, by the way. It looks like they're up 10 against TCU tonight. Keston Hiura, it's a good value at ADP 73. Yeah, he had a bad year last year, 212. But all that said, he hit 19 homers in 303 as a 22-year-old rookie. He had an off year last year. He struggles defensively. They brought in Colton Wong because of that. Hiura will just have to play first base this year. And as a former first baseman, I don't discount that, right? But I feel like getting him in a solidified position where he just has to worry about what he has to do catching the ball when they throw it over to him and then go hit. It'll allow him to hit for power. It'll allow him to take a lot of pressure off of himself at the plate. I look for really big things out of Keston Hiura. Again, at 24 years old, I view him very similar to Gleyber Torres. So, guys, I'll ask you this. The guys that are out there. Gleyber Torres or Keston Hiura, who do you prefer? 73 for Hiura, and Torres is at 65. 65.8. Who's your choice there? Who do you take? I mean, I take Gleyber, But I feel like Hira is going to have – at Miller Park, he's going to have a really big year, guys. So if he maintains his pace – sorry, I want to get this right. 143 Major League games. That's all he's had. Okay? If he maintains his pace over the course of the past 2 years, he's on a 36 home run pace. That's big. I mean, that's first baseman power right there. And he has the potential to hit plus 300. Those are the types of stats that you're looking for because, listen, quite honestly, there aren't that many of them at this position. So at 73 ADP, you're telling me I can get a 30-homer, 300 hitter who's also eligible at second base and first base? Sign me up, guys, every time. Because if he's eligible at second, first base, he's also eligible at middle and corner. Position flexibility's plus here. His profile's just different enough. He's got plus power where some of these other second basemen, he can hit you 40 homers. That's big at second base. And hit you 300. That puts him in another category. That's why I put him ahead of Whit Merrifield initially. I reserve the right to change my mind. I'm changing it right now. Whitley Merrifield, 32 years old, 40 is the ADP. So you're talking about fairly significantly more draft capital that you're having to put into Whit Merrifield, which is what I was thinking initially when I put him below Hira. But if you look at what he's done, he's been a solid contributor at the top of this lineup. He's flexible. He's able to play in the outfield and at second base. If you're in a league, he's eligible at center and at right field. If you're in a league that plays positions, which I am, so that enables you to play him in at two positions out in the outfield. And he's been really productive. He's been really consistent. And this team has gotten better, right? So you look at the additions of what the Royals have done. They've added Andrew Benintendi. They've added Carlos Santana. So let's think about that. Does Merrifield become more of a second baseman this year with the addition of Benintendi? I feel like maybe they're realizing Nicky Lopez is maybe not the answer. Here's the thing about Merrifield. Outside of Biggio, who, by the way, has a lower ADP than Whit Merrifield. You'll notice I have him a tier higher. Just want to put that out there. And again, the more I did research on Merrifield, it seems like it makes a lot of sense. His stolen bases are there. He had 12 stolen bases last year in 60 games. That's 36-ish stolen bases. That's impressive. That is something that nobody else in this category is going to give you. That's asking a lot. He has done that, right? He stole 45 in 2018. He stole 34 in 2017. So he's capable of doing it. Could it be that because they've gotten better, he all of a sudden becomes more engaged and starts to try and run more? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that this guy's been as consistent as anyone in the game. And if he stays healthy, he gives you a certain set of numbers that other folks in this category, especially at second base, just don't give you. So I have stock up beside him, meaning I initially put him too low. So 40 ADP, you're talking about a fourth round pick. Probably worth it for this type of profile. Ketel Marte, 27 years old. Again, stock down. I actually will put Altuve in front of him. I put Moustakas in front of him. Heck, I might even put McNeil and Lowe in front of him. I really am low on this guy. But again, you kind of want to let the ADP be the guide rails. No sense jumping a guy like this. You want to rank him low enough that you don't get stuck with the decision on draft day. Do I have to take this guy? Right? So for me, his ADP is 73. I'll probably go ahead and move him down around 100 personally, because I feel like with me, he's already lost the stolen base portion of his game. 27 years old. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for him to not steal bases again. I mean, it's just not. Is it likely? I would say no. Now, the 32 homers from 2019, they're starting to feel more and more like an outlier to me, like an anomaly, like a white whale. So, if his homers are gone and his stolen bases are gone, is he really worth a 72 ADP? A seventh round pick? I think it's a big ask, especially on a team that's not going to be very good. I'm not drafting Ketel Marte, guys. I'm not doing it. On the other side of this, I'm going to draft Jose Altuve. If I get a chance to draft Altuve, better believe I'm going to take that, because currently Altuve is going at an ADP of 92. I've said it all along. I take these Astros on a case-by-case basis. Some of these guys I feel like directly benefited from cheating. Other guys maybe benefited a little bit, but not enough to truly sway you. And then other guys didn't benefit at all, right? I feel like, so for instance, Altuve, I feel like definitely benefited some. But I feel like this guy's got a track record. I mean, it's not like this guy's got. It's not like they've done that. It's not like they've cheated for his entire 10-year tenure. It just didn't happen. I get that people dislike him. I'm taking advantage of that, guys. I'm taking advantage of that for two reasons. Well, for three reasons. The third one's the important. First reason. Career 311 hitter. 361 OBP over 10 years. Those are significant numbers. Significant numbers. That tells me it's been repeatable. Yes, he may have benefited. People might not like him because of it. Take that out on Bregman. Take that out on Springer. I hate talking about this. I hate talking about that. But I feel like people are undervaluing Altuve because of this, and I feel like I have to champion him here a little bit. He had a bad year last year. People want to talk about it's directly due to COVID. And yeah, that might have had something to do with it. But what I found out last night when I was researching this, and I don't know how widely known this is, I kind of have a feeling that it's not. Altuve lost 2 family members last year. And he asked the media not to discuss it. He wanted to keep it private. He wanted to keep it to himself. We still don't know who the family members are and what the circumstance, and that's fine. But maybe there was something a little bit more important than baseball going on in Altuve's life last year that caused him to have that bad season. Here's the good news. Coming into this year, all reports are he's back to his old self. He's smiling. He's having a good time. He's determined to show people that last year isn't the player that he is. The third point, and the most important point to me, George Springer signed with the Toronto Blue Jays. Newsflash. That's significant for Jose Altuve because the leadoff position is now wide open. Who do you think they're going to put at that leadoff position? It's Jose Altuve. If Jose Altuve can return to the point where he is running, he all of a sudden becomes a first-round pick again. You're talking about a guy that you can get in the 9th round who over a 10-year career already is chalked up 4 30 stolen base seasons and a 50 stolen base season. 6 30 stolen base seasons. Yes, his numbers have been down over the past couple of years. 6 in 2019 wasn't great. He was dealing with some injuries, though. I feel like Altuve is going to come back and steal at the top of that lineup a ton of bases. If he does that, if Altuve rolls off say a 25 stolen base season, hits 310, scores 100 runs, where do you have him? What is he worth? At second base, mind you, that's supposedly talent starved. You're getting him in the 9th round, guys. That's value. None of these things, he's 31 years old. That's not old. He's motivated. I love what Altuve brings to the table, and I feel like he's a tremendous value. Mike Moustakas. ADP is 120. And again, so we're kind of starting to jump around this ADP a lot, right? Higuera 73, Merrifield 40, Marte 73, Altuve 92, Moustakas 122. That's okay. Who do you like? I like Mike Moustakas. He's the last guy in this first tier of the two, right? So like I said, we kind of split them up within those tiers. That gives us for comparison's sake, right? Mike Moustakas is really being undervalued, given that he's just 32 years old. So he's not old by any stretch of the imagination. He's playing in the, if not the best ballpark, not named Coors Field, the second. I'd say Small Park and Miller Field are the two best hitting environments outside of Coors Field in the major leagues. I might be missing somebody. I don't mean any disrespect if I can. And then you're looking at a situation where he's got guys around him that protect him, even given they're cut down in spending. Nick Castellanos is there. Joey Votto's still there. Eugenio Suarez is there. Nick Senzel is there. Point. It's a good opportunity for him to drive in runs with those home runs. Sure, you want more out of your average from your second baseman. But I was listening to CBS Sports this morning. I think that's who it was. And they were talking about who the heck were they talking about? Totally lost my train of thought. I'll move on. Mike Moustakas is a career 251 hitter. Yes, he hit 230 last year. His OBP was 331. You're talking about a guy who's hit 30 home runs in 2 of his last 3 full seasons. That third season, he hit 28. He hit 8 homers last year, so a little bit of a down year from that perspective. But you got to have to think he's a shoo-in for 30, hitting in that lineup with the protection around him that he has. Brandon Lau, 26 years old. ADP is 67. You'll notice again, I've got Moustakas over Lau. To me, Brandon Lau and Jeff McNeil are the same player. Lau at 67, McNeil at 91. I like both of them. I feel like they're both a touch overvalued for what they give you in return. I won't spend too much time here because I feel like there's other places where I could spend my time valuably. If I'm going to have to be forced to choose between the two, I'm taking Lau. I'm taking McNeil because his ADP is lower. I like both of these players. I don't love them, especially what their ceilings give you. You're talking about 270, 280. You're talking about around 25 homers. And you're talking about around 10 steals max for both of these players. That's not worth a top. Heck, that's not worth a 10th round pick to me. Who I will take a chance on, personally, at ADP 138, Tommy Edman. I like Edman because he has a real opportunity to hit at the top of the Cardinals lineup. He's third base, shortstop, outfield eligible. And I got to be honest with you guys. He had a bad year last year from a stolen base perspective. He was 2 for 6 from stolen bases. The year before that, He was 15 of 16. That's an indicator to me. That's not the real Edman on the base paths. You don't go from 15 of 16 to 2 of 6. You just don't, unless you're hurt. Worst case scenario, Edman's hitting 320 with a 361 OBP versus left-handed hitters. Keep that in mind for DFS. But I really like, again, at his ADP, you're talking about a 12th rounder. This is an extreme value to me. The Cardinals love him. If you're in a daily change league, to me, this is a guy that's gold. I don't think 25 stolen bases is out of the realm of possibility. You're looking at around a 280 hitter, and if he hits in the top of the lineup, even part-time, you might be looking at 70 or 80 runs easily. I want to move over. I know it's getting late. I got to jump off here at 9. Please come back at 10 o'clock. We got some great college basketball to talk about. The other angle, Chappie and RC. Like and subscribe. iLogic Media. Chap's Fantasy Chat. Draft for Upside. A lot of great content on Draft for Upside. Support all the great podcasters that we have. Going to talk about Ben Roethlisberger a little bit. My buddy just texted me asking about it. Check out all the great resources we have, guys. We're up and coming. Like I said, going to spend just a few minutes at shortstop. I think it's important, though. Last week, I talked extensively about Tatis, Turner, and Story. All three of those guys are first-round picks. The next tier to me, though, is even more interesting. And, within this tier, I'll give it to you the way I have it currently. Bo Bichette, number 4, ADP 24.8. Bogaerts at 5 at 29.2. Lindor at 6 at 16. Again, the importance of making your own list. Seager at 7, 36.8. And Torres, again, I've talked about him already. I won't spend time on him here. Long story short, Turner's undervalued. Story's undervalued. Tatis is overvalued. Personal opinion. To me, this time next year, we could be talking about who's the better franchise shortstop, Fernando Tatis Jr. or Bo Bichette. We haven't seen the best of Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette, throughout the career, has always chased Vlad Jr., and he's been fine with that. He's actually liked that. He's loved having that to look up to drive him. Make no mistake, I've said this now for the better part of 2 years. Bo Bichette is the face of the Blue Jays organization. Period. Not George Springer, not Lourdes Gurriel, not Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette. 24.8, you're talking about top of the third round. I'll say it again. I'll say it slowly. This time next year, we're going to be talking about who the better shortstop is, Bo Bichette or Fernando Tatis. You do the math. Tatis going at 3 or Bichette going at 24. Yes, he's still a high draft pick. If you have to spend a second-round pick on Bo Bichette, you should do it. You're talking about a plus 300 hitter. You're talking about a 30-homer guy, and you're talking about a 20-steal guy. Let's break down last year's stats. He pulled his hamstring, which would greatly affect a lot of things as a baseball player. From games 1 through his first 14 games, 14 and 15 is what he played. He was hitting .361. He had a 391 OPP. He was slugging 672. 5 homers and 13 RBIs, projects out to 58 and 151 before he pulled his hamstring. After he pulled his hamstring, he hit 242, zip homers in 15 games, and 10 RBIs. Mind you, that's still 108 RBIs projected out. His 2-year, given the injury, given that distinct bracket that you could put aside as this is a direct cause of an injury, he still is averaging 311 for his career. Per 162, you're looking at a 307 hitter with 35 homers and 17 stolen bases. That's just what he's averaging, given that 2-week clip. Again, you're talking about, I don't have it in front of you. You're talking about not even a full season yet, okay? Bo Bichette's an absolute buy, and he's an absolute steal. I think you guys are kind of getting my gist here. You got to go middle infield heavy here, and you kind of have to be tactical. Am I saying you should target Trevor Story and Bo Bichette? Absolutely. If you got to spend your first and second round pick on these two players, why the heck wouldn't you do it? Love Xander Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts is extremely underrated. Love him in that revamped offense. Love his role there. Frankie Lindor is overvalued. I love him. I think he's, an exceptional talent. 16 to me is still just a touch too high. Give him a lot of variables, right? Corey Seager is the one I feel like I can't get away without talking about him. Much the same as so I'll pivot just a little bit. Trey Turner is so valuable because of his stolen bases. If you ask me, Trevor Story or Corey Seager, I will answer Corey Seager every single time. So why not Bo Bichette, Corey Seager? You're missing a little bit of stolen bases because Seager's not going to score you that many or steal you that many. But what Seager brings is a type of power that really, outside of Trevor Story, you're not going to find at this position. And you're getting it 2 rounds later. Corey Seager this time next year might be a first-round pick. People forget before he got injured, towards the ACL, I think, he was a first-round pick. Hit 40 doubles as a rookie. 22 years old. Had 44 doubles last year. Led the league. Make no mistake about it, Corey Seager is one of the steals of this draft. I'm sitting here telling you, Bichette, Seager, second, third round. Build your draft around it. That's what I'm planning on doing. And I know all these suckers in my league listen to me, so hopefully I get one of them. This second tier is littered with talent. Tim Anderson, to me, seems like the clear-cut favorite among this second tier, though. The other guys have some pretty big holes, question marks, if you will. Anderson at 47. Correa, to me, at 121, has a lot of potential, as does Baez at 73. Semien at 137. Marte and Edmund, rather, talked about a little bit. I have Adalberto Mondesi all the way down here. And I think it's important to take note because the reason, yes, Mondesi gives you great stolen bases, and there certainly seems to be a lot of potential there. But the thing that scares me about Adalberto Mondesi is he will not walk. He's got 25 walks in the last 2 years. 25. If you don't work a walk, I don't care how fast you are, you're not going to hit leadoff. And if you're not hitting leadoff, that's going to affect a whole bunch of other things, including your stolen bases. I'm steering well clear of Mondesi, especially at 33. Give me Bichette all day, every day. The one other guy, last guy I want to talk about, I'm going to wrap this up and get off of here. Come back and join me at 10 o'clock. The other angle, Chap and RC, we're going to talk a ton of college basketball. We're going to finish up. We're going to talk about some middle infield too, because I always feel like it's fun to reflect after you do this. What did you miss? What points do you want to drive home? So make sure, if you enjoyed this content, please hit like, subscribe. iLogic Media, Draft for Upside, Chap's Fantasy Chat, Twitter, Facebook. Come find me. I want to talk about Dansby Swanson, the last guy I'm going to talk about. To me, Swanson's a poor man's Corey Seager. He had his breakout year last year. He had 274 with 10 homers and 5 stolen bases. That projects out to 28 and 14 over a full season. You're talking about a player you can get 4 or 5 rounds later than Seager that can give you comparable stats. I really love what Dansby Swanson brings to the table. You look at that offense, it's comparable to what the Dodgers bring. You could see a scenario where Swanson has an even higher average. It's more than 28 homers. I think the stolen bases are kind of capped out. 15 stolen bases, you're happy from Dansby Swanson. You're never getting that from Seager. I feel like 300's maybe the ceiling for Swanson, but I feel like it's not attainable for him. 30 homers is absolutely attainable for Dansby Swanson. He profiles that way. Again, at 106, I really like this value here. The only other guy I want to make a quick mention to here, who I feel like is in a really good scenario, Paul DeJong, 241 ADP. You're talking about a guy that you could pick up at the back end of your draft who's going to be hitting second for the Cardinals. DeJong brings a profile that, yes, it might be streaky. Yes, there might be periods where he doesn't give you much. He has 40 homer potential in his bat. Abso-flippin'-lutely. If he hits second, he could score you 80 or 90 runs, and he could also drive in 80 or 90. I think DeJong's very underrated at 241. Jorge Polanco, transitioning to second base. Andrelton Simmons, takes over at shortstop. He had a bad year last year. You're talking about a guy at 223 you can absolutely grab. Willie Castro, 302. Love that value. You're talking about a third base shortstop. He doesn't play a lick of defense, but we don't care in fantasy. He hits the ball, and he's going to play in Detroit. 302 for Willie Castro. Kevin Newman is a freebie. A freebie. He's 1 year removed from being a 300 hitter for the Pirates. 12-16 in 130 games. Fell flat last year. Quite honestly, the entire Pirate organization did. That's okay. The positive about Newman is the positive about Newman is he's going to be pushed by O'Neal Cruz, who the Pirates are going to want to get a look at. So if Cruz starts out and he plays well in the minors, Newman is directly on the hot seat. The good news for Newman is he could play second base. He could play the outfield. But look for him to be a little extra motivated this year. And let's be honest. An infield of Brian Hayes, O'Neal Cruz, Kevin Newman, and Colin Moran, it's too shabby. Everybody loves to talk bad about the Pirates. I know I'm wearing their hat. I'm actually a Cubs fan. If they can get anything out of their outfield, I think they're going to be better than people think. So, anyway, come back and join me at 10. We're going to be talking some college basketball. We're going to be putting a bow on some draft strategy. We're going to talk auction strategy at 10 o'clock. So, the other angle with Chappie and RC, Chap's Fantasy Chat, Draft for Upsides, the group. iLogic Media is where you find us. Like and subscribe, please. Post questions, comments, Twitter, Chaps Fantasy Chat, Chaps Fantasy Sports Group on Facebook. Appreciate the support. Hope you like the content. I'll see y'all in an hour. I'm going to go eat some pizza. Later, guys. Take care. Thanks.